only is that bad enough, in order for them to control, for the oil companies to control and to find out where their fracks is, they have to put down here a radioactive chemical or radioactive material into here so that they can monitor it from up here. So you've got, not only do you have the chemicals that are bad for you, you have the methane coming up and getting into your water, but then you have your radioactive stuff that they pump in there to gauge where they're going. So that's the three contaminants that are in there. And these things all work to the surface. You know, if you go out to a field, you'll see rocks, and you go out and you pick all the rocks. Next year you got to go pick rocks again. And the reason being is because the earth is always turning. It just, I don't know enough about it, but it upheaves and the rocks come up. Well, that's what happens here. Eventually, this stuff is going to come to the surface. It might be 10 years, it might be 50 years, it might be 100 years. I don't know, but eventually that's what's going to happen to it. Okay? So that's the methane. That's the shallow gas. And around here, this is what you have here, is you have this huge gas line field. Now, I understand that the Blood tribe, or the Blackfeet tribe, has entered into a memorandum of understanding with a company from Louisiana, Florida, called Ecosphere. They just signed an agreement here the other day. And what they're trying to, you know, and I've read some materials on it and did as much research as I can on it, and I can't find enough on it, but what they're trying to say is that they're cleaning water so that, oh, just a minute before I get on to that. So when they bring all of this stuff up, the other contamination is when the water comes up here, they've got to get rid of it. They've got to do something with it. So they either pump it into trucks and take it to a site and clean it, or alternatively, they build a cesspool right around it. We saw them on some of those oil wells. Or alternatively, they just take a lake and dump it in there. And then what they do is they then come back and then they pump it out and claim that they're cleaning it up. And the environmental people come in and they monitor that to make sure that those lakes are eventually cleaned up. But if you put them into a cesspool or a natural lake, they're sitting there, it's got to go into the ground. It just has to. They're not going to sit there mixed up with the water, because the chemicals and water won't mix. They stay separate. So the chemicals never break down. They're always there. And this list of chemicals, if you look on the website, you can see they have a list of chemicals that they use, and there's usually 30 to 40, but the worst of them is like benzene and carbon minus 14. You know, they're deadly lethal chemicals that they use. So this deal with this new company, as I understand it, is that they clean the water out and they only pump water down here and sand in order to frack. And they're not supposed to be using any chemicals. But that's not what they're claiming. It's a cleaner way, but they don't say it's not free of chemicals. It says in there that there is some chemicals used. Yeah.
In fact, if you look at the website, the only thing that they clean out is the bacteria from the produced water.
That's right.
The bacteria is brought up from when they, the produced water will come back up.
Yeah.
It brings bacteria with it.
Yeah.
So they take out the bacteria so that water can be reused for fracking, but it's not clean water.
It's not clean water. That's why I got out of it too. So, you know, and you know what upsets me is that when these companies come in and they talk to the council, they don't tell them the whole story. If they tell you the whole story and say, hey, listen, this is how it works, you're going to have some contamination, well, we can control that contamination, or the effects of that contamination will be this. You know, I could live with it a lot more. But when they won't tell you, that's the thing. And in this new act that they have, in fact, it's the U.S. government has just passed an act, and they excluded Halliburton from disclosing the chemicals that they use in frac mac or whatever it is. And they won't disclose that to anybody. They said it's a trade secret, and I'm not going to tell anybody. So at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're leaving all of the controls to the oil companies, and they won't tell you anything. You'll say, we're self-controlling it, but they're not self-controlling it. That's what the problem is. They're not self-controlling it. And as a result of that, we're exposed to this type of environmental concerns. And that's all I'm concerned with. All I want us to do is I want to know how deep the well is, what kind of well it is, what chemicals they're using, who's pumping it out, what type of tests that they're doing on the water that's coming out of there. I want the whole story. I don't want just part of the story. Because let me tell you, fracking is for the oil companies' benefit to get as much oil out of the ground as cheap as they can do it. And if they can do it, the cheaper they do it, the better off they are. And it's better for them. They're in the business to make money. They're not in the business to say you and your children. They could care less. There's not one guy in any oil company that, and you read about them. All these guys that say that fracking is good, all work for oil companies. You don't see people who are professors, and in fact, is in what they call a website on Wiki. Anyway, if you look on that website, and I've got some copies here for you to look at, you read that, and it'll give you the true story of what goes on here. So that's the fracking part. But I want to talk a little bit more about our traditional stuff. Like I say, I'm a conservative, and I want to save as much as we can. But what happens is that the oil companies, they come in, and first of all, I never understand, why are we doing our own? Instead of getting Exxon oil, if they're making all this kinds of money, surely to goodness, we could start our own drilling company and start drilling wells. The Blood Reserve's got its own drilling outfit. We don't even use it on the Blood Reserve. It doesn't make sense. We should be doing our own drilling. Because once you start drilling, it's just a matter of exporting it, and there's all kinds of markets for it. But we don't do that because we rely on the NAPE influence to come in and to do that. And then they take all the profits. They say, oh yeah, we're going to hire all kinds of people. Blood Reserve, how many people working on we got, I think, 4 oil wells that are going there, and they probably got about, 20, 30 people working there. And I'd say there's 5 of them that are in native, and all 5 of them are working on the security gate. It doesn't make sense what they're doing is. And we do it because of the money. BAM gets that money, and they want to get that money, and they want to get it in their hands. And then our people up home, we have a distribution process where the money comes in, and the first thing they want to do, they want to get distribution. Like we sold our rights to half of our reserve for $52 million. That was 2007, 2008, somewhere. Anyway, in 1980, we sold the exact same lease for $50 million. This lease we sold for $52 million. Same lands, same acreage. Now you tell me, here, price of oil was $20 a barrel. Here, it's $100 a barrel. $80 difference. Just the other day, we signed a new agreement that came in. This is just a month ago, less. And we leased out some more land. And in here, this 2008 agreement, we sold out for $570, I think, a square hectare. This new land that we sold the leases on, was $1,750 a square hectare. 3 times the amount, But like I say, councils, they don't. They pass this agreement in 2 hours. We've got to start thinking better. We've got to start taking care of our resources and taking care of our people. But if we don't do these things, that's how it gets away from us. So anyway, that's just kind of a brief little history here of what fracking is all about. And I've got some documents with Roxanne, my cousin. And so if you want to do some reading on it, and I, as a lawyer, I look at all sides. You know, I'm not willing to jump on the bandwagon and say, hey, I'm an environmentalist. On the other side, I don't want to pollute soil. Well, that's not right. You know, there's a safe way to get oil out, you know, and a controlled way to get oil out. And I don't mind the safe way because that's easy. There's no problem there. But when we do this other, this fracking, I want to know what's going on. I want us to control it on our reserves, and we're just not doing that. And unfortunately, our leaders they just don't take that step. So anyway, so that's kind of a sort of a great